In New York, I was Mrs. Eleanor Vance, wife of a stoic investment banker. My life was a quiet symphony of museums, charity dinners, and the cool touch of silk sheets. In Chicago, I was Isabella Bella Rossi, lover of a passionate, struggling musician. My life was a chaotic jazz solo of smoky clubs, cheap wine, and tangled limbs. I was two different women, in love with two different men, in two different cities. I was a masterful liar, the conductor of my own fractured orchestra. My only mistake was forgetting to check their conference schedules. The transition happened somewhere over Pennsylvania, 30,000 feet in the air. I walk into the airplane lavatory as Eleanor Vance, a woman dressed in a tasteful cashmere travel set, her hair in a sleek, elegant chignon. I emerge 10 minutes later as Isabella Rossi, a woman in ripped jeans, a soft band t-shirt, and with her hair shaken loose, wild and free. It's a practiced transformation, a shedding of skin. In my purse, a second phone holds my second life. A second set of keys opens a second apartment door. A second man waits for me, a man who knows a completely different version of my heart. This is my art, the masterpiece of my deception. I am married to two men, and neither of them knows the other exists. My first husband, Arthur Vance, is my anchor. He provides a world of quiet, stable luxury on the Upper East Side. He is 20 years my senior, a man who loves me with a gentle, possessive pride. I am his beautiful, intelligent wife, the perfect hostess for his dinner parties, a graceful ornament in his well-ordered life. Our love is a thing of comfortable silences, of shared routines, of a deep, unspoken understanding that passion is a currency we do not trade in. He gives me security, a name, a world where I never have to worry about the future. I play the part of the doting wife perfectly, telling him my frequent business trips as an art consultant are essential for my career. He, a man who values ambition, never questions it. My second husband, Luca Rossi, is my fire. He lives in a small, chaotic apartment in Chicago that always smells of oil paint and cheap coffee. He is a musician, a beautiful, struggling artist who loves me with a raw, desperate intensity that Arthur could never comprehend. With Luca, I am Bella, his muse, his partner in crime. Our life is a whirlwind of passion and uncertainty. We eat cheap takeout on the floor. We make love with the windows open to the sounds of the city. We talk for hours about art and music and the beautiful, aching tragedy of life. He believes my art consulting job is what keeps us afloat, the reason I have to travel so much. He sees my absences as a sacrifice for a shared dream. I justify my monstrous deception with a simple, twisted logic. I am giving each man exactly what he needs. Arthur needs a beautiful, stable partner to complement his public life. He doesn't need messy, inconvenient passion. Luca needs a passionate muse who believes in his art. He doesn't need the burden of financial reality. I am not one whole woman, but two halves, and I have given each half to a different man. The seduction is not in the men themselves, but in the power of this duality, the addictive thrill of being two different people, of living two complete, separate, and fulfilling lives. It is a fragile, exhausting, and exhilarating house of cards. And I am the only one who knows that a single gust of wind could bring it all crashing down. The guilt is a constant, low-grade hum beneath the surface of my days, a price I willingly pay for the life I've built. The real challenge is the logistics. My life is a complex spreadsheet of lies, a tightrope walk over a canyon of exposure. I have 2 calendars, 2 sets of friends, 2 wardrobes. The mental exhaustion is immense. Sometimes I wake up in Arthur's cool, silent bedroom, and for a split second, I expect to smell Luca's coffee. Sometimes when Luca calls me Bella, my mind takes a moment to catch up. I am constantly editing, curating, and performing. Walls between my 2 worlds feel solid, but sometimes a crack appears and my heart stops. A close call happened last spring. A college friend of mine, who lives in New York, announced she was taking a job in Chicago. We'll finally be in the same city again, part-time at least. She'd said over the phone. A cold, absolute terror seized me. I spent the next week frantically creating a lie, telling her my consulting work in Chicago had dried up, that I was now focusing on projects in Boston and San Francisco instead. It was a clumsy, risky move, but it worked. The crack was sealed, but it was a chilling reminder of how fragile my constructed reality truly was. The distance grows with both men, not because I love them less, but because I can only give them a carefully edited version of myself. With Arthur, I have to hide my passionate, impulsive side. Our conversations are intellectual, serene. He has no idea about the woman who dances in dive bars and gets into heated arguments about art. With Luca, I have to hide my connection to wealth and stability. He sees me as a fellow struggling artist, and he has no idea about the woman who attends charity galas and has a doorman who knows her name. Each man is in love with a character, a half-truth, because the whole truth of me would destroy them both. The most dangerous moments are the ones where one world threatens to bleed into the other. Arthur's company was considering acquiring a smaller firm based in Chicago. I remember the night he told me, my heart pounding in my ears as I calmly listed all the logical, financial reasons why it was a poor investment, using business acumen I had picked up from his own dinner parties. I successfully sabotaged the deal, saving my secret but adding another layer to the guilt. Then, a few months ago, Luca was offered a series of gigs with a traveling band with a major stop in New York. I had to talk him out of it, telling him it would be a step back for his solo career, that he needed to stay in Chicago to build his local following. I was actively manipulating their lives, clipping their wings to keep my 2 cages separate. It was a selfish, monstrous thing to do, but the addiction to my double life was stronger than my conscience. The end of my 2 worlds began with an email I barely glanced at. It was from Arthur, a forward of his itinerary for the annual Vance Capital Investment Summit in Denver. "Just so you have it, darling," he wrote. I filed it away without a second thought. A week later, Luca called, his voice buzzing with excitement. A major music and arts festival, also in Denver, had booked him for a last-minute corporate gig on the main stage. "It's a huge opportunity, Bella," he'd said. "You have to come." The tragic cosmic coincidence didn't even register. I was so used to keeping my 2 lives separate that the idea of them physically occupying the same city at the same time felt like a statistical impossibility. I told Arthur my consulting job needed me at an art fair in Denver. I told Luca I could clear my schedule to support him. I flew to Denver, a city that was about to become the stage for my own personal apocalypse. I spent the first night with Luca, living in his world of music and chaotic energy. The next evening, I transformed back into Eleanor Vance and accompanied Arthur to his Summit's opening night gala at a grand, opulent hotel. The ballroom was a sea of expensive suits and polite, meaningless conversation. I was playing my part, the perfect corporate wife, smiling and nodding as Arthur discussed market volatility with his colleagues. I felt safe, anonymous, in a world Luca would never touch. Then my blood ran cold. The event organizers stepped onto the stage. And now, for your entertainment, we are thrilled to present a brilliant musician all the way from Chicago. Please, welcome Luca Rossi. I froze. My wine glass trembled in my hand. It couldn't be. This was Arthur's event, a finance summit. But as I looked at the stage, there he was, Luca, my Luca. He walked into the spotlight, his guitar in his hand, looking beautiful and completely out of place. He scanned the crowd, and his eyes found mine. A slow, intimate smile spread across. His face, a secret message meant only for me. I wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor, after his set, which was a torturous, beautiful masterpiece of his best songs. He put down his guitar, his eyes still locked on me, and started to walk towards our table. At the same exact moment, one of Arthur's colleagues clapped him on the shoulder. "Remarkable musician, Arthur. You must introduce me." The two currents were converging, a catastrophic tidal wave about to crash. Luca reached me first, his face beaming with pride. He leaned down to kiss me, his voice full of love. "There's my beautiful wife," he said, just as Arthur turned around. "I'm sorry," Arthur said, his voice a mixture of confusion and polite condescension. "I think you're mistaken. This is my wife, Eleanor." The world stopped. The music, the chatter, the clinking of glasses, it all went silent. Luca's smile vanished. He stared at Arthur, then at me. Arthur stared at Luca, then at me. The two men, my two husbands, my two separate worlds, were standing face to face, their eyes filled with a dawning, monstrous, and identical understanding. And I was standing in the middle, the architect of their shared heartbreak, my beautiful house of cards finally, spectacularly, collapsing all around me. The ballroom, which seconds before had been a stage for my public life, became a courtroom. The gazes of my two husbands were the prosecution and the judge. The silent, screaming verdict was guilty. The retreat from the party was a blur of cold, furious silence. We ended up in Arthur's hotel suite, the three of us, a toxic, impossible trinity. The luxury of the suite, with its panoramic views of the city, felt like a mockery of the ugly, claustrophobic reality that was unfolding within its walls. The emotional storm that broke was not a whirlwind of yelling. It was something far worse. It was a cold, quiet, and methodical dissection of my lies. Arthur, the stoic banker, was the first to speak, his voice devoid of all emotion. "Chicago," he said, the word hanging in the air like a death sentence. "The art consulting, was any of it real?" Before I could answer, Luca, his voice raw with a pain that was a mirror of my own, spoke up. "New York," he whispered, looking at me as if for the first time. "The freelance work. The reason you were always gone, was that him?" They weren't yelling at each other. They weren't yelling at me. They were standing on opposite sides of the room, two strangers, connected by a single devastating truth, me. They started to compare notes, their voices quiet, methodical, as if they were two scientists analyzing a failed experiment. The business trips, the family emergencies, the birthdays I had to miss. Each piece of information was a new brick. In the wall of my deception, and they were building it together. Right in front of me, my breakdown was absolute. I sank onto the floor, my body shaking with sobs, the weight of my monumental lie finally crushing me. I tried to explain, the words a pathetic, tangled mess. I loved you both, I cried, looking from one shattered face to the other. I needed you both. I needed the safety you gave me, Arthur. And I needed the fire you gave me, Luca. I couldn't choose. I didn't want to choose. Choose? Arthur let out a short, bitter laugh. This wasn't a choice, Eleanor. This was a game, a sick, selfish game where we were your pawns. You didn't love us. You loved the power of having us. How could you watch me struggle? Luca asked, his voice cracking with a pain that cut me deeper than Arthur's anger. How could you let me believe we were in it together when you were living in a palace with him? Was I just your little charity project? Your escape from your boring, rich life? There were no excuses. There was no defense. They were both right. I had used them. I had manipulated them. I had broken them. The hard choice was not mine to make. The choice was theirs. And for the first time in my life, these two men from two different worlds were in complete and total agreement. Arthur was the one who said the words, his voice cold and final. Get your things, Eleanor, or Isabella, or whoever the hell you are, and get out of our lives. I was erased. It was a swift and brutal deletion from two lives. I flew back from Denver to a reality that no longer existed. Arthur's lawyers had already changed the locks on our New York apartment. A sterile email informed me that my things would be packed and sent to a storage unit. Luca's number was disconnected. His apartment in Chicago, the one that had been my fiery sanctuary, was empty. His friends telling me he had packed up and left, no forwarding address. They had both, in their own ways, vanished, taking my two worlds with them. I was left in a desolate, anonymous limbo, a woman without a home, without a husband, without an identity. The emotional twist wasn't a dramatic confrontation or a quest for revenge. It was this slow, terrifying realization that I didn't know who I was anymore. For years, I had been a reflection, a carefully curated persona for two different men. I was Eleanor, the elegant, intellectual wife. I was Bella, the passionate, free-spirited muse. But who was Lena, the woman underneath it all? I had no idea my breakdown was not in a single tear-filled night. It was a slow, quiet, and agonizing process of facing the stranger in the mirror. I got a small apartment in a city where no one knew me, and I tried to build a life from scratch. A single life. There were no charity galas, no smoky jazz clubs. There was just silence. The silence was the real punishment. It was a vast, empty space that had once been filled with the love and lies of two different lives. I received the divorce papers a month apart. First, the thick, formal document from Arthur's legal team. Then a crumpled, hand-delivered envelope. From a process server, the papers from Luca. Seeing them both, the legal, final erasure of my two identities, was the moment of true, gut-wrenching finality. I was no longer Mrs. Vance. I was no longer Mrs. Rossi. I was just Lena, a name that felt foreign on my own tongue. The story ends here, in this quiet room, with these two documents that represent the ghosts of two lives I tried to live at once. There was no justice, no revenge. There was only the natural, devastating consequence of a monumental, selfish lie. I had wanted everything: the safety and the storm, the stability and the passion. And in my greedy, desperate attempt to have it all, I had ended up with the one thing I was most afraid of: nothing, just myself. And I am only now beginning to learn how to live with her. I was addicted to being two different women, living two different lives. When my two worlds collided, they didn't just leave me. They erased me. I didn't just lose two husbands, I lost myself. So tell me, is it possible to truly love two people at once? Or is that just the most beautiful, selfish lie a woman can tell herself?